Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of What's This Wednesday here on the channel. And today we're covering a game called I Am Setsuna. Now, I Am Setsuna is a game made by Square Enix, and it harkens back to those old Chrono Trigger-esque days where you would have a small group of people, a small group of your party, and you'd go out on the grand adventure because there's some huge thing that needs to be done to save the world. And so it's that cool, grand fantasy RPG kind of deal, and it certainly does give you those moments of, oh wow, it feels like old Chrono Trigger, it feels like old Final Fantasy. It certainly does have a lot of those old feelings. And one that you'll notice is immediately in the overworld is you'll see we've got little sprites, the crushed, they're not really crushed down sprites, but the isometric view makes it sort of look like they're crushed down on the overworld as you walk around and find points of interest and go inside them, because each little point of interest is like a gateway. You click on it, then you go inside that town or that area, thus expanding on the world. But this game really does share its similarities with its predecessors in its gameplay. You have things like techniques, your techs that you can do by having certain party members with certain abilities inside your team, which will then combine to unleash special attacks. You've got each character's special attacks, which you have to equip through a system called Spirit Knight, and Spirit Knight is these magical crystals that have infused energy, and if you equip them into your character, they'll be able to tap into that latent energy and then use those abilities. So you've got things like, your cure spells, your buff spells, your damaging magic attacks, even sometimes your charge up moves where you can, increase your power. So your buffs, your debuffs, all those kinds of good maneuvers. And there's an interesting system with the Spirit Knight where if you have equipment that has certain matching types to this type of Spirit Knight, because there's all Spirit Knight, support Spirit Knight, and command Spirit Knight, and so there's A, S, and C. So if you match the type of socket that you have in your gear, which either says A, S, or C, to the Spirit Knight, which also either says A, S, or C, I think you get a small bonus, and at the end of a match, you might be able to get a specific bonus for the next fight that you encounter. So some of them can be critical hit rate up, some of them can be critical damage up, some of them can be extra health, or, increased attack, increased defense. There's a lot of different bonuses. But the main meat of this game is in the momentum mechanic, where your characters have a sphere next to their health and their mana and their ATB gauge, and if that sphere fills up, you'll get a glowing little dot. You can then use those glowing little dots to unleash momentum attacks, and those attacks will either do increased damage, they might add a debuff, they might add a buff to yourself. It depends on what move you're doing in that time, and when you choose to activate the momentum in order to get those benefits. So if you say do the attack Cyclone that Endir has, and you use it, it will deal extra damage when you do it. So it's not only an AoE attack, but now it's an AoE attack plus, it does extra damage. So it's easier at clearing out a bunch of enemies. If you do certain attacks, it might apply a debuff to the opponent, if you use momentum with this, it'll apply attack down or defense down. So knowing when to use those mechanics is really pertinent to winning battles, because sometimes you'll get your buffs, defense up, protect, will give you increased duration, which is really helpful because then you don't have to keep applying it so often and wasting your mana. There's also the ATB gauge, which if you're familiar with some of the newer Final Fantasy games, they're all in it, and the ATB gauge, basically once it fills up, that's when it's your turn to attack. But the mechanic with momentum is you can keep attacking to fill up your momentum meter, or you can sit there with your character with your ATB gauge, and it will fill up the momentum meter faster. A little bit faster. Certain characters might benefit from doing attacks or spells to, increase it faster because their ATB gauge fills so slowly, but that is one of those risk rewards, say Bravely Default. Bravely Default used to have... Well, sorry, not used to have. Bravely Default does have a specific mechanic where if you Brave or Default, you can gain action points or spend a bunch of action points. Same with it, very akin to Octopath Traveler, where Octopath Traveler is more akin to the Bravely Default line of Square Enix sort of games. I Am Setsuna definitely follows in more of the Final Fantasy-esque sort of Chrono Trigger line, where combat is like completely active and enemies can attack you while you're deciding what to do. So you do have to be on your toes. I believe you can change that in the settings, so that way once you're selecting something, time freezes, to sort of free you up from that, because I know certain people get really flustered in boss fights with the ATB gauges and being able to be attacked while making a decision, because sometimes you get new abilities and you have to read them all, and that can take some time to get used to what each one says. Because sometimes in certain games they'll change up, like Bio. Bio used to be like a poison damaging type in Final Fantasy games and other Square Enix properties. Well, now it's not. Bio doesn't do poison damage anymore. I think it does like null type damage, which is a basic set of damage. I think it's like almost like physical, but it's like magical based. I still haven't quite figured out what null type damage is yet. There's a lot of things in the game I haven't figured out because I've only been playing it for a little while, and I just these What's This Wednesday videos are just for first impressions, you know? It's just for me going through, telling you what I like about the game or what I don't like about the game. I'm just sort of giving you an overview of what it's like. The music, once again, it's a Square Enix property, so the music is going to have that amazing Final Fantasy-esque adventure tones. You know, when it needs to be upbeat, it's upbeat. The battle theme is pretty good. The overworld themes are, you know, slow and twinkling like the snow is in the area, because you do start this game off in, like, I would say, I guess, one of the polar positions of their world. So you're definitely in a snowy, like, north or southern continent where there's going to be a lot of snow. So if you don't like snow levels, or you don't like snow in general, I mean, the beginning of this game might be a bit harsh for you, because you definitely do start there quite a bit. And there is a few other unique things about this game in terms of items and how that works. So in order to get your Spirit Knight crystals, there's a trader's guild that you can trade in items that you get while killing enemies. And killing enemies doesn't always yield the same rewards. So certain enemies will drop only certain parts of their bodies, like materials, if you kill them with a certain element of attack, or if you kill them with a certain type of attack. So if you kill something that's weak to fire with fire, you might not get a certain item. But if you kill it with only physical damage, you might get that item. There's also, if you kill it with a momentum attack. If you kill it with a momentum attack, you might get a different item, or multiple of a certain item. If you kill it with an exact kill, or an overkill, you might get different items. So this game does have that sort of explorative, go back to old areas to see what items each monster can grant you sort of feel, because you're going to want to, if you want to fill out like the bestiaries and all the item logs and get all the Spirit Knights in the game, you might have to be doing that kind of thing. But the Traders Guild, you trade in all those items, and then they will give you access to however many Spirit Knight you can trade in for that. So if you sell like 15 of one crystal and 13 of another, and together they both make like the Cure Spirit Knight. You can take 13 Cure Spirit Knights from the shop if you want, but that will take some of the traded in materials that you've already used. So it's kind of like putting them into a crafting pool and then using those items inside the merchant to have him craft the items for you. So once you've traded them in, they become a resource in themselves for the merchant to give you Spirit Knight. So if you only have one of an item and it uses, you know, for 3 different Spirit Knights, you're going to want to use that one item for whichever Spirit Knight you want the most, because once it's used, you can't use it for the other 2. There's also, you know, weapon shops where you can buy new weapons, and I feel like they've given me a lot of weapons really, really quickly in this game. Like, I've got 4 or 5 weapons for these characters, and I don't feel like I've ever really needed to upgrade my weapons at all. I mean, there was once or twice where I was like, okay, this character, I just got this character, and it feels it feels like they're weak, but that's probably because they're under-leveled, because they were like 5 levels behind me. And yes, this does suffer from that JRPG mechanic of, you know, once you get a character, they're going to be at a certain level, you're going to have to level them up. So if you're over-leveled, you know, way to go. You're going to have to play catch-up. But yeah, so there's also the weapon shop there that you get the weapons from, but there's also a cooking mechanic in this game where on the overworld or inside the adventure maps, you can actually pick up cooking ingredients. And if you talk to certain people inside towns, some of them can give you access to certain cooking recipes, and you can use those cooking recipes to gain a bunch of different effects, like experience up. If you want to use that, it can maybe give you attack up. I don't know, I haven't found a lot of recipes, but there certainly is that recipe mechanic. Another thing about the battle, because I'm watching the video here while going over the points I want to talk about, is when you ambush enemies in the field, you will actually start with momentum gauge and a full ATB gauge. So when you do surprise attack enemies, you are rewarded for that. So if you really want to start clearing out all these places quickly, you know, sneaking up on them when their back is turned, you know, it's really, really easy to do and really easy to clear out a lot of fodder fights. Those things I mentioned earlier that you can get after clearing a fight are called fluxes, and certain of your equipment, certain of your talismans will have bonus effects and flux bonuses. Now, I'm not exactly entirely sure how to trigger the flux bonus. It was a little weird, and I didn't read it more than twice, but I should go back and I should fully read what it does. But flux bonuses are like random bonuses that you can get, or certain specially triggered bonuses that you can get that will help you for your next fight. I mentioned those a little bit earlier, but then you have certain things on your talismans like your bonus effect, which is an always in play kind of passive bonus effect for having that thing equipped. And so the game starts you off with a few characters. You yourself play as Endir, who is like the main protagonist of the game, so to say. And he meets up with Setsuna and Eterna, who are... It's not a big spoiler thing, but Setsuna is the sacrifice for whatever means. I won't go too much into the story, but Setsuna is the sacrifice, and she needs to make it to a specific area called the Last Lands in order to fulfill her sacrificial duty. Eterna is her guard, or was supposed to be her guard, and your job was to kill Setsuna for whatever reason. However, you have a change of heart, and you eventually meet up with other characters such as Nidir and Kier, and there's also another character that I won't mention because she looks really cool, and I like her a lot, and I'm hoping she comes into the party. You get a chance to name her, and I'm guessing that every character you get a chance to name, you get to add into your party, so I'm really hoping that she comes into the party because she looks really cool, but I'll save that because I don't want to give away all the spoilers to the game, obviously. I want to keep certain things for certain special occasions. And so it's got the same thing with all of the other RPGs like this. You've got your grand adventure, you walk around the overworld, you go to new towns, sometimes there might be like little side quests you can do, you know, sometimes it might be part of the main quest where something bad happened to the town and now your characters want to help, and as Endir, you can actually be like, I don't think we should help these people, and then the other characters will speak up and be like, how can you say that? Or like, I think it's best if we do, after all, we still need blah blah blah, so helping them would be our best option because they might have blah blah blah. So yeah, it's basically just your classic JRPG made for modern console. I got this on Switch. I'm sure it's for other consoles. I think it came out on Steam as well. But as always, if you want to know what platforms it's on, I keep those in the title, so that way you can immediately know if you like the game, what platforms to go get it on, because I like helping you guys out like that by throwing that little nugget towards you. But anyway, that's pretty much all I have to say about I Am Setsuna, because yeah, if you know some of these classic RPGs or have played, you know, a JRPG before, you are going to have a pretty firm grasp from what you've seen and what you've already played on how this game will be and if you'll want to go on this adventure. I can recommend it. It's a pretty chill game. I probably should stop playing it while I'm tired because it kind of puts me to sleep, because I love the winter, you know, the winter aspect is very calming for me and everything. So it's one of those games like Yoshi's Woolly World that I have to stop playing while I'm like tired or relaxing because I just get so sleepy. So yeah, thank you all for joining me on another episode of What's This Wednesday here on the channel, and I'll come at you again on another random Wednesday with another random game. And until then, take care, everybody.